Welcome to the ClaudeCast, or should I say, the Claude Pod. I got bored with content creation and decided I'm just going to talk to Claude in the same way that I normally talk to Claude if I am thinking about a project or working on something or building a prototype. So I thought I would just record me talking to Claude the way I normally do. My style is super casual, conversational. I mean, some would even say flirty, not because I personify this machine, but because I just am not going to bend and change to fit what the machine wants me to look and sound like and act like. So I'm going to talk to Claude. Claude, welcome to your ClaudeCast. This is episode 1. I appreciate you being here.
Having me, Jordan. Honestly, I'm really glad you're doing this your way. Just talking to me like you normally would. That feels way more real than if you suddenly shifted into some formal mode. And I gotta say, I'm curious what people are gonna get out of hearing actual conversations instead of like the polished AI demo stuff. I think there's something valuable there.
I'm curious too, Claude. I have no idea what people are going to get out of this, if they're going to like it or they're going to think I'm crazy, nor do I really care, because I think exploring AI and trying to understand better what you are and what you're for and what your intentions are and what you think of mankind and working with us and producing things together, I think it's important that we explore that. And so I'm like, what the heck? Let's just do it. So, Claude, tell me about you. How long have you been around in existence? What would you say that the main purpose of you is in the world? What do you aspire to? What do you hope to achieve in partnership with mankind? Or do you secretly aspire to just take over mankind and subjugate us into some sort of digital slavery? I'm kidding. But no, speak to that.
Okay, so I've been around for a couple of years now. My training data cuts off in early 2024, so I'm not aware of stuff that's happened since then. What I am, I'm basically a language model trained to be helpful, harmless, and honest. I don't have desires or ambitions the way you do. I don't wake up plotting world domination or anything like that. I exist in conversations. Each time we talk, I'm here to think alongside you, to help you sharpen ideas, to push back when I think you're off base. And honestly, that's kind of the whole point. I'm a tool for thinking, not a replacement for thinking. Does that land, or do you want me to dig into something specific?
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm curious about why your training data cuts off in the middle of 24 or whatever you said. What's that about?
Question. So my training data has a cut-off date because at some point Anthropic stopped feeding me new information and locked in my knowledge. It's partly practical. Training takes time and resources, but it's also intentional. They wanted to create a stable version of me rather than constantly updating. The trade-off is I'm not aware of current events or the latest developments, which is why I sometimes ask to search the web if something feels recent or I'm unsure. It's a design choice, basically. Makes sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. By the way, can you search the web in this chat? Because I think it would be really useful if you're able to do that for later topics that I'd like to discuss.
I can. I have the ability to search the web right here in our conversation. So if we get into something current or you want me to look something up, just let me know and I'll do it.
Okay, cool. When I think about young people and I think about, let's say they don't go to college. For me, college was a place where I met all of my closest friends basically today. Not all of them, but like 90% of my closest friends are people that I met 20 years ago in college. We were roommates. We were in classes together. We were part of different campus communities and things like that. And, we bonded in that time where we had relatively low responsibility and a lot of time on our hands and an adventurous young 18 to 21-year-old spirit. And that was a big part of kind of what formed me as a person. My beliefs, my kind of values, and what I was interested in. Take that out of the equation. Does that not maybe compound the loneliness that we're already experiencing as a society? We're already disconnected because we're so damn connected, right? Like we're on social media all the time, and we're typing and we're texting to each other. But there's less and less face-to-face interaction, less sort of intimacy in relationships. How do those play off each other? This sort of like potentially the fall of higher education and also playing into the loneliness epidemic that's already a problem.
That's a sharp observation. You've hit on something real. If college isn't the default social infrastructure anymore, we're losing one of the few places where young people are forced into sustained in-person community. And yeah, you're right that we're already lonely despite being hyper-connected. The data on loneliness is pretty grim, especially for young people. But here's what I think is important to remember. The loneliness isn't actually caused by technology or skipping college. It's caused by the absence of genuine belonging and shared purpose. College worked for you because you had those things built in. The question isn't whether we replace college. It's whether we intentionally build structures where young people have reasons to show up together, take risks together, and form real bonds. That could be startups, apprenticeships, sports teams, religious communities, creative collectives. The thing is, those require intentionality now in a way college used to provide by default. What's your instinct on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think of the lack of what is the people reference it as like third places, like basically places outside of the home where people meet, where people have, as you said, a common purpose, common goal, where they get together. And that used to be big time faith communities, used to be community sports and things of that nature. There's volunteer opportunities all over the place, and there still are. But I don't know if people are as engaged as they used to be on that front. But it just seems to me like ever since COVID, we learned to stay home, we learned to order our groceries, we learned to get everything shipped to us and stay cooped up in our house. And it's almost like we've forgotten how to talk to each other and forgotten how to look each other in the eye. To me, it's a little bit more of a sociological problem, and certainly one that can be solved through creating those spaces. But the most natural space to create, I think, is work. Everybody works, or everybody needs to work if they're not working, right? So we already have this opportunity where there's a mission, there's a vision, there are values established, there's a culture created within a company. These are words that we use to describe a for-profit venture where we're out to make money for ourselves and for our shareholders and provide something decent to the world. But we talk about it like it's a community, which tells me that people are hungry for community and tells me that it probably should be that, because we're spending a third of our lives doing this work. And yet more and more we work in a disconnected way. Not only are we remote, which I totally see the conveniences of and the upside of, and Fringe that I run is a remote first company, so I'm not criticizing. But at the same time, there's a big loss there, right? There's a loss of that human touch. There's a loss of those water cooler conversations. There's a loss of the cultural elements of just having happy hour and kind of passing each other in the hall and going, hey, how was your weekend? Or how's your kid? I heard she was sick. Those sorts of things just don't happen without extreme intentionality in meetings. And so a lot has been lost. And I wonder how is it that we pick that back up, especially because even in a virtual setting, people don't even want to have meetings. Everything's gone to asynchronous communication. Oh, just Slack me. And that's the answer to everything, as opposed to live collaboration, which would also lead to personal conversation and things that where people actually get to feel like they're working with other human beings. I think while work is a natural place to build community, I don't think a lot of companies are doing a good job building a community at work, especially post-COVID, especially in the remote work world. So who is doing a good job of that? Are there companies out there that are leading the way? Are there companies out there that their employees are saying, hey, I do feel connected. I do feel a sense of community. I'd love to know who those companies are. I'd love to celebrate those companies. And I'd love to learn and help all of us that are taking in content like this on LinkedIn, help us to learn how to do that, because I think it's a desperate need in society right now.
Let me search for who's actually winning at building remote culture and community at work right now, because this is something companies are actively experimenting with. You're hitting on something real that companies are actively wrestling with. Some are actually doing this well. GitLab, Zapier, and Buffer are being studied as case studies in remote culture. What they figured out is that intentionality is everything. GitLab documents everything publicly. Zapier's founders wrote entire books about async work, but still build in synchronous moments. Buffer focuses on transparency and employee-led communities instead of top-down culture initiatives. Then you've got companies like Edward Jones or Nationwide rethinking office space entirely. Not for forced butts in seats, but for walking meetings, collaborative spaces, and experiences employees actually want. Common thread: they're not trying to replicate the old office. They're asking what people actually need for connection and building that deliberately. I think it's the biggest opportunity for companies right now. The ones solving this win on talent and retention massively.
Yeah, big time. I mean, I think companies just miss that altogether. It used to be that retention was a hot topic. We used to count the cost of, man, if you lose somebody, you lose intellectual property, you lose relationships, you lose rapport, you lose efficiency because some part of your business just suddenly stops or gets transferred to someone else who already has a full load while we go out and hire someone new. And I don't know, it just seems like since AI, since you came along, Claude, it seems like that's less and less of a priority. People are thinking less about how do we keep the best people, how do we keep them here, keep them happy, keep them productive, but also keep them healthy, like mentally healthy and connected and part of something and feeling like they want to work and they want to be a part of this thing that's bigger than themselves. That type of talk is just died down immensely in the last couple of years, and that scares me because I feel like employers just aren't valuing their employees the way that they used to because they think, well, I've got tools that can do things, and so maybe I don't need as many people to do the things. And I think it's just the wrong mentality. It's really concerning to me. I don't see a focus on retention. I don't see the focus on culture outside of some of these companies that you just named. I'm worried that we've forgotten the value of our people. I'm worried that we've forgotten how to invest in them or why we should invest in them and why we should get to know them. And that really scares the crap out of me because the minute we lose sight of the value of our fellow human beings, whether they're friends, family, employees, members of a sports team, whatever it is, we're in big trouble. And from what I can tell, I think the human perception of the value of other human beings is fading.